I wasn't supposed to be home that night. My original plan was to crash at the hotel near the airport. My flight got in late, and I had told Emma not to expect me until morning, but something tugged at me. Not quite a reason, more like a gut itch I couldn't ignore. So I grabbed my bag, got in the car, and drove the hour home. The house was dark when I pulled in, porch light still on, curtains drawn. Nothing looked off exactly, but as soon as I stepped through the door, something shifted in my chest, like the air inside wasn't the same one I left behind. I dropped my bag by the hallway table and stood still, listening. Nothing but the soft hum of the fridge. But then I saw it, on the coffee table, 2 wine glasses, one with coral lipstick smudged on the rim, the other with big sloppy fingerprints. I swallowed. Emma doesn't wear coral, and I didn't leave those glasses out. I walked further in, scanning the living room. Everything looked in place. Couch cushions fluffed, TV remote neatly stacked with the magazines. But on the recliner, thrown over the side like someone left in a hurry, was a navy blue hoodie I'd never seen before. Too big to be hers. It smelled faintly like a stranger. Not cologne exactly, just unfamiliar. My chest tightened. I stepped into the kitchen and opened the trash lid. Empty wine bottle, red, not our usual. I walked upstairs, slow and quiet, checking the rooms like a man trying not to admit to himself what he's doing. Everything seemed fine. Bed made, windows shut. But the bathroom told a different story. There was a damp towel tossed over the shower rod, not one of ours. And the fog on the mirror told me someone had used it not too long ago. Maybe an hour or two. That's when I heard the front door open downstairs. Her voice floated up. "Babe, that you?" I stepped out of the bathroom and met her on the stairs. She looked surprised, then smiled like nothing was strange. "I thought you were staying at the hotel." "Changed my mind." She walked up to me, barefoot in leggings and a big t-shirt, hair still damp. "You should have called. I would have picked you up." I nodded but didn't say anything. My eyes drifted toward the living room. I wanted to ask about the hoodie, the wine glasses, the smell of someone else's presence still lingering like smoke after a candle's been blown out. But I didn't. "Oh," she added quickly. "I had a couple friends over last night. Just some wine and catching up. You know how girls get." Her smile was too easy, practiced. I said nothing. Just looked at her, then nodded again, more to myself than to her. In the silence between us, something curdled. Not quite anger, not quite fear. Just a slow, steady uncoiling of trust, peeling back layer by layer. I carried my bag upstairs and never asked about the hoodie. The text came at 6:17 p.m. "Gonna be late. Team dinner after the meeting. Don't wait up." I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen. Nothing about the message was strange. She'd gone to dinners like this before. It even had the usual emoji at the end. But something about it, maybe the wording or the way she didn't ask about my day, made the back of my neck tighten. I typed, "Okay, drive safe," and hit send. Then I sat on the edge of the bed for a while, staring out at the dying light over the backyard. The house felt too quiet again, like it had the night I came home early. She left around 7 o'clock. I listened to the sound of her keys, the gentle click of her heels on the floor, and the front door closing behind her. When her car pulled out of the driveway, I stood in the living room, unmoving, until the taillights disappeared down the street. Then I just wandered. I didn't turn the TV on, didn't cook, didn't even bother with a beer. I walked from room to room like I was seeing the place for the first time, touching things, noticing small details I'd ignored before. A wine cork in the kitchen drawer, a men's razor in the guest bathroom we never used, a hair tie, definitely not hers, stuffed under the couch cushion. At some point, I sat on the couch in the dark and stared at the front door, waiting for it to open again, waiting to see how late she'd actually be. Around 10:30, I heard her car in the driveway. The garage door didn't open. She was parking on the street. That was new. I leaned back, letting my eyes close just enough to fake sleep. I heard the door unlock, heard her ease it open gently, as if trying not to make a sound. Then the softest footsteps. Not heels now, flats, or maybe she'd taken her shoes off in the car. She walked past the living room, pausing briefly near the hallway. I could feel her watching me, trying to decide if I was asleep. I didn't move. "Hey," she whispered. "Long night? I'll tell you about it tomorrow." No kiss. No. "I love you." She disappeared upstairs. I opened my eyes then, staring at the ceiling. Earlier that afternoon, I'd heard a voice message play on her phone when she left it in the kitchen. A man's voice. Software too soft. Miss you already. That was all it said, but it was enough. It happened on a Wednesday. I had come home a little earlier than usual, maybe around 5:30. The house was empty. Her car wasn't in the driveway yet. I stood in the kitchen, flipping through the mail, not really paying attention to any of it, when I saw her phone sitting on the dining table, face up, unlocked. She must have been rushing out the door that morning because she never leaves it behind. I walked past it once, then again. The screen was dim, but a message notification blinked at the top, one of those preview banners that disappears if you don't catch it fast enough. I told myself not to look, that whatever I thought I was going to find, I couldn't unfind. But I did it anyway. I picked it up. The screen lit up. Messages. There was a thread at the top from someone saved as L. Just a letter. I tapped it. The most recent text was only 2 minutes old. Still thinking about last night. Can't wait to see you again. Underneath it, another. You looked so good in my shirt. Don't wash it yet. My stomach dropped. I stood there, phone in my hand, fingers trembling slightly. There were more messages. A string of hearts. A blurry photo I couldn't quite make out, but I knew that background. It was our guest bathroom, the same bathroom where I'd seen the damp towel days ago. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could barely think. My breath slowed, almost like I had to concentrate to remember how to do it. The room around me blurred, and then the messages vanished, deleted. Right in front of me. Just like that, the entire thread disappeared. 1 second it was there, and the next, gone. Wiped clean, like it had never happened. I don't even know how. Maybe she had some kind of app. Maybe he did. Or maybe she was watching from somewhere, logged in on her work computer, and she realized what I was seeing. Either way, it was gone. But not from me. I placed the phone back on the table exactly how I found it. Same angle, same position. My heart was pounding, but on the outside, I was still. Cold. When she got home 20 minutes later, she smiled like she always did. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag and slipping off her shoes. "Traffic was brutal." I nodded, barely looking up from the paper I wasn't reading. "Yeah, you're home a little later than usual." She shrugged. "Had to swing by Target. We're out of toothpaste." I nodded again. She poured herself a glass of wine, sat across from me, and started scrolling through her phone, unbothered, calm, acting like she hadn't just deleted a secret life from it. I didn't ask questions, but I knew now. She wasn't just lying. She was building something, piece by piece, in a world where I didn't exist. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I wasn't supposed to be home. I had planned to meet an old friend for lunch, but halfway to the restaurant, he called to cancel, something about his kid throwing up in the car. So I turned around and drove back, not really thinking much about it. When I walked through the front door, the house was silent. Emma's car was in the driveway, but there was no sound from upstairs. I figured she might be in the shower or taking a nap. Then I saw her laptop. It was open on the kitchen island, screen glowing, as if she'd only stepped away for a second. I moved toward it without meaning to, drawn like a moth to fire. I told myself to walk past. I told myself it wasn't worth it. But then I saw the subject line at the top of the email thread. Reservation confirmation, Lakeview Resort, suite for 2. I stared at it for a long second. My hand moved before I even realized what I was doing. The email was short. A confirmation from a boutique hotel about a weekend booking, romantic package, 2 nights, rose petals, spa credit, and breakfast delivered to the room. It wasn't the reservation itself that got me. It was the name listed under Guest 2. Logan Weller. I didn't know a Logan Weller, but apparently my wife did. I clicked into her inbox. I didn't want to, but I couldn't stop myself. There were more emails, hidden under a folder named Taxes, buried deep. Hotel receipts from as far back as 6 months ago. A cabin in Asheville, a resort in Savannah, always for 2, always marked as personal. Then I found the photos. They weren't graphic, nothing explicit, but they didn't need to be. One was taken in a cozy-looking lounge, dim lighting, and a fireplace behind them. She was leaning into a man I'd never seen before, his hand resting on her knee. Both were holding wine glasses and smiling like they'd known each other forever. I scrolled down, another photo, her in a bathrobe, standing on a balcony, barefoot, morning sun on her face. The caption underneath read, Still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. I couldn't breathe. I clicked back through the email threads like I was possessed. I needed to see more, needed to understand how long this had been happening, how many lies had been told in that soft voice of hers, how many work trips weren't work at all. I heard footsteps upstairs, a door opened. I quickly exited the inbox and closed the laptop, making sure to leave it the way I found it. She came downstairs, towel around her neck, smiling like nothing in the world was broken. "Hey, didn't know you were back. Thought you had lunch?" I nodded. "Friend canceled. Kid's sick." She kissed me on the cheek. "Too bad. You should have stayed out, had some time to yourself." I smiled, but inside, something had cracked open, and now I couldn't close it again. She was chopping vegetables when I walked into the kitchen. I stood there for a second, hands in my pockets, watching her hum to herself, like the world hadn't cracked in half between us. The cutting board was full of half-prepped ingredients. Dinner for two, even though neither of us had been eating much lately. "We need to talk," I said. She glanced up. "Can it wait? I'm in the middle of this." "No," I cut in, my voice flat. She sighed and set the knife down. "Okay, what's going on?" I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I had printed it that morning, an email, the reservation confirmation. I didn't say a word as I handed it to her. She unfolded it slowly, eyes scanning the top, then the line with the guest name. Her face went blank. "It's not what you think," she said, way too fast. I nodded once. "Then help me understand." She set the paper down and crossed her arms. "It was just a getaway. I needed space. Logan's a friend. Spare me." "Excuse me?" I leaned on the edge of the counter. "I've seen the messages. I saw the photos, the hotel bills, Asheville, Savannah, Lakeview. I know it's been more than just one guy." Her face twisted, not in guilt, but in annoyance. "Were you going through my things?" "After I found the wine glasses and the men's shoes in our entryway, yeah, I started looking. After I heard a man whisper, 'Miss you already on your phone,' yeah, I started listening. Don't pretend like you've been careful. You've been spying on me." She spat the words out like I was the problem. "No," I said quietly. "I've been waking up." She pushed past me toward the fridge. "So what? You find some emails and now you think you know everything?" "I know enough," I said. "I know you lied to me. I know you've been living a whole separate life, while I've been right here, eating dinner with you, folding your laundry, trusting you." She slammed the fridge shut and turned. "God, you're being dramatic." "No," I said, my voice firm now. "You're being indifferent. You're standing there like you don't even care that you've burned our marriage to the ground." She laughed, sharp, humorless. "You always were a bit too sentimental. Maybe that's why this stopped working." And there it was. Not regret, not even shame, just boredom. I nodded once, like I'd finally heard her loud and clear. Then I walked out of the kitchen, past the table, past the half-chopped vegetables, past everything we used to be. Whatever had been holding us together, it wasn't there anymore. And maybe it never had been. I wouldn't have known about the package if it hadn't been for a junk email that slipped through my spam filter. It was addressed to Carrie Wilson. That name hit me like a slap. Carrie was Emma's maiden name, a name I hadn't seen in years, at least not in any way that mattered. But there it was, right next to a tracking number and a pickup confirmation from a shipping service I didn't recognize. I clicked the link. The address listed was a private mailbox facility on the outskirts of town, in a strip mall next to a vape shop and a martial arts dojo. I stared at it for a long time, then grabbed my jacket. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, the sky was the color of wet concrete and my hands were slick on the steering wheel. I wasn't even sure what I was hoping to find. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. I walked in and gave the woman at the counter the name and box number. She barely looked up as she handed me a small silver key and pointed toward the back wall of locked cubbies. "Box 114. The key turned easily. Inside was a single cardboard box, taped neatly, with no markings except a printed shipping label. Again, to Carrie Wilson. I hesitated before opening it. My stomach was tight, like it knew something my brain hadn't caught up with yet. I carried it to the car, sat in the driver's seat, and opened it right there. The first thing I saw was lingerie. Not the kind you buy on a whim, high-end stuff, price tag still attached. Buried underneath was a designer purse in its original dust bag, a wallet with her initials monogrammed on the leather. Then came the driver's license. It had her picture, but a different address. Charlotte, North Carolina. Not even the same zip code. Under that was a folder. Inside, a lease agreement for a condo in Charlotte, signed 2 months ago. The second page was a contract with a property management company, scheduled furnishing, digital key access. She'd been planning to move, planning to leave. The last thing in the box was a printed welcome packet. Carrie Wilson, welcome to South End Residences. Across the top was a photo of a sleek modern building with rooftop views and a cocktail lounge. She had a whole life waiting for her somewhere else, and I wasn't part of it. I sat there for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, holding that new ID in my hand. The weight of it all hit me harder than anything else had, because this wasn't about affairs anymore. This wasn't about hotel rooms or whispers from strange men. This was an escape plan, a new name, a new city, a future where I simply didn't exist. And the worst part, she was so calm lately, so confident. She wasn't hiding anymore because she didn't need to. She was already gone, just waiting for the right weekend to vanish completely. I put everything back in the box, drove home in silence, and placed it under the bed where she'd never think to look. Not yet. But I knew now. She wasn't lying to keep our life intact. She was lying to walk away from it. The morning after I found the Charlotte condo lease, I sat at the dining table with a cup of cold coffee and our shared laptop. Emma had already left for work. I had called in sick, not because I was sick exactly, but because I needed time. Time to pull on the thread that was unraveling everything. I logged into our bank account. At first, nothing jumped out. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, all normal. But then I noticed a line item from a month ago. Lavelle Executive Services. $1,850. I didn't recognize it. Definitely not a business I had ever dealt with. I Googled it. The results were vague. Some slick corporate page that said Consulting and Lifestyle Concierge Services in gold script. But when I dug deeper, I found a forum post, buried under layers of legalese and paywalls, describing Lavelle as a cover business, one that offered discreet companionship experiences for high-paying clients. Escort services. I closed my eyes and sat back in the chair. My hands were cold even though the room wasn't. I scrolled through the last 6 months of statements, and the deeper I looked, the more pieces started falling into place. Hundreds of dollars spent at designer boutiques I didn't recognize. Repeated charges at high-end hotels. Random wire transfers to consultants with generic names. And none of these charges were ever mentioned. Not once. It wasn't just infidelity anymore. This was business. She'd been siphoning money from our accounts, slowly, in small amounts at first, then in bold transactions like she no longer cared whether I noticed or not. That explained the new license, the condo, the lingerie. It was all part of something bigger than just sneaking around with a few guys. This was structured, planned, built. I dug into our savings account, same pattern. Withdrawals that didn't line up with anything she told me. Thousands disappearing into prepaid debit cards and third-party apps I'd never seen before. I opened another tab and pulled up our investment accounts, transferred my share into a new one in my name only. It took 10 minutes. I didn't hesitate. Then I called the bank and froze our joint checking. I told them there was suspicious activity. They flagged it for fraud, and just like that, the bleeding stopped. I spent the rest of the afternoon setting up accounts she didn't know about. Changed passwords, closed anything that had both our names on it. Everything I should have done a long time ago. By nightfall, the house was quiet again. Emma still hadn't noticed anything, not yet. But I knew it was only a matter of time. Whatever game she was playing, whatever world she was building behind my back, I wasn't going to bankroll it anymore. She thought I was the one being left behind. She had no idea I'd already packed up my trust and walked out. She told me she was going to see her mother in Greensboro. It was Friday morning, and she had already packed an overnight bag. The kind she used for short trips. Nothing fancy, just enough space for a couple outfits, her makeup kit, and whatever secrets she didn't plan on sharing. Mom's been feeling off lately, she said, while brushing her hair in the hallway mirror. Just want to check in on her for the weekend. I leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed. You talked to her recently? She nodded without looking at me. Yeah, yesterday. That was a lie. I called her mom an hour after Emma left. Hi, sweetheart, her mother said, warm as always. Everything okay? I just wanted to see how you were feeling, I said. Emma said she was coming to see you this weekend. There was a pause. No, I haven't heard from her in a while, she said. Tell her I said hi, though. I thanked her and hung up. My hands didn't shake. I didn't feel angry, not even surprised, just hollow, like someone had scooped me out weeks ago and I was only now realizing it. I watched from the upstairs window as Emma pulled out of the driveway. She didn't look back, just turned the corner and vanished like she had somewhere important to be. Somewhere that didn't include me, her supposed husband. The rest of the weekend dragged. I didn't sleep much. I couldn't eat. I kept the lights off at night and sat by the window, phone in my hand, watching the road for no reason at all. Every hour that passed without a text or a call from her just proved what I already knew. She wasn't with family. She was somewhere else, being someone else. By Sunday night, I stopped wondering what excuse she'd use when she returned. I already knew she'd act like everything was fine. She'd walk in, kiss my cheek, maybe even mention her mom's imaginary headache or some made-up lunch they had, and I'd nod like I believed her. But I didn't. I had stopped believing a long time ago. What I felt now wasn't rage or sorrow, it was preparation. I started gathering things, passwords, documents, backup copies of everything she might try to erase when the truth finally came to light. I wasn't chasing answers anymore. I was stacking evidence, preparing for the end. Because the life we'd built, the dinners, the anniversaries, the shared Netflix accounts, and inside jokes, it wasn't real anymore. It had been replaced with this cold, calculated routine, and I was done pretending it was anything else. She said it was a work trip this time. Last minute, out of town, some client presentation in D.C. She packed a business suit, heels, her laptop, and that same black leather travel bag she always used. Her tone was flat and practical, like she was talking about the weather. I didn't ask any questions. I just watched her as she zipped her suitcase, slipping her tablet into the side pocket like nothing was out of the ordinary. "Don't forget to water the peace lily," she said, already halfway out the door. "I won't," I replied, not even looking up from my coffee. The second the door closed behind her, I walked straight to the office. Her email was already open on the desktop, careless, or maybe just confident that I wouldn't dare look again. But this time, I didn't hesitate. There it was. A confirmation for a luxury hotel in Charleston. Oceanfront suite, 2 nights. Reservation made under her alias, Carrie Wilson, but billed to a prepaid card we never used for anything personal. I recognized the card number from one of the earlier transactions I'd flagged. There was no conference, no presentation. Just another getaway with someone who wasn't me. I didn't even scroll further. I didn't need to. The knot in my chest wasn't made of surprise anymore. It was something heavier, final. I closed the browser, turned off the monitor, and sat back in her chair. This wasn't about finding more evidence. This wasn't about catching her red-handed. That part of me, the part that needed proof, needed to understand why, was already gone, burned out. All that remained was clarity. She didn't love me. She hadn't in a long time. By the time her car disappeared down the block, I'd already started making my list. Not a list of her lies. I'd stopped keeping track. But a list of my next moves. Attorney consultation, already scheduled. Separate mailing address, set up. Joint accounts, already frozen. I stared out the window and watched the wind shake the trees in the backyard. That same backyard where we once talked about building a deck, planting a garden, growing old. Now, I couldn't even picture her sitting out there. She didn't belong to this house anymore, and neither did I, really. When the time came to end it, there would be no blowout fight, no dramatic speeches, just paperwork, logistics, empty drawers and forwarding addresses. She thought she was the one quietly slipping away. But I was already gone. I sat in the lawyer's office on a rainy Tuesday morning. The carpet was gray, the kind that looked clean, even when it wasn't. The windows fogged slightly from the humidity, and the air smelled like stale coffee and toner ink. "I've seen worse," the attorney said after I finished laying it all out. "But not by much." She slid a packet of papers across the desk. "This will freeze the remaining shared assets and legally prevent her from selling or moving anything significant. I'll file it by end of day." I nodded. I had nothing left to say. On the drive home, the windshield wipers scraped rhythmically against the glass. It was like the world itself was washing away what was left of our marriage, one drop at a time. By the time I walked through the front door, I didn't feel like I was walking into my home anymore, just a place I happened to live, a shell full of things we picked out together, now hollow with the weight of everything I'd uncovered. I sat on the couch in the living room. The TV was off. The walls were quiet. I glanced at the bookshelf where a framed photo of us from 5 years ago still sat. Her smile in that picture was wide and bright. Mine was too. Back then I believed it. Now I knew better. She had been living 2 lives, maybe even more than 2. There was the life with me, the quiet suburban marriage, the dinners, the polite conversations about weekend plans and whose turn it was to do the dishes. But then there was the other life, the one with the affairs, the alternate identity, the hidden mailbox, and the luxury hotels paid for with stolen money. And there was more than lust in it. There was structure, strategy, business. She hadn't just cheated. She'd built an entire reality where I didn't exist. I pulled out the folder I'd been building over the last few weeks. Printouts of emails, screenshots, bank statements, voice messages, copies of the condo contract and her second driver's license. Evidence, but also closure. Proof that I hadn't been imagining it. That the gut feelings, the sleepless nights, the paranoia, they were all real. I placed the folder into a fireproof box and locked it. Then I unplugged her side of the bathroom sink, packed up her toiletries, emptied her drawers one by one. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just done. By sunset, I sat in the living room again, surrounded by silence. The space felt cleaner somehow, not lighter, just stripped of illusion. The comfort that used to be here had been gone for a long time. I just hadn't noticed. Now it was over. No yelling, no begging, no more questions. The reckoning had come and gone. All that was left was to walk away, and this time I wasn't looking back.